So good to see all the interesting participants here on one screen. Hello, Scott. So for those of you who don't know Scott or who haven't seen my messages so far, Scott is the workflow king who does wonderful things with workflows. Any issue you have, he can actually solve that with a workflow. Like that's how good he is. Scott, would you like to add something?
So sorry, I was just getting all my screens set up. So yes, hello everybody. Yeah, we can start whenever you want.
Yeah, we can
Yes.
actually wait for a couple more minutes for people to join in and then we can
Okay.
get started. In the meantime, if you guys have created any super cool workflows, why don't you go ahead and share those with me in the Slack certified channel, or you can drop me a personal message, whatever you're comfortable with. And the best workflows will get an opportunity to win a cool Slack swag actually. So if you have created some workflows, why don't you drop those in the Slack certified channel and we can look into it. Along the way, we will talk about some wins from the last week, like we always do, and then we have actually added some fun quizzes for you as well. And one of them is like my favorite. So you will get an opportunity to like connect with a lot of other participants and maybe learn some really cool things from Scott as well. Um, Maybe you all can drop in the comments where you are joining us from, and anything specific you want to highlight out of all the badges you have done in the last week. And while we're almost on time, and I feel like a bunch of people are already here. So, um, Scott, if you would like to start, maybe a
Sure.
bit of your intro and what we are going to learn today.
Yep. Let's just go ahead and get right to it. So thank you, Pusha, for the opportunity to speak about workflows. Yes, my name is Scott Patton. A lot of people call me the workflow king because I love Slack workflows. I could talk about them for the rest of the day, but unfortunately, we've only got an hour or a little bit less than that for me to talk about workflows. So yes, I've been working with Slack Workflows Workflow Builder for about 5 years now, ever since they came out, and it's kind of really what got me into the whole Slack ecosystem. Our organization started using Slack about 5 years ago, and then Workflows came out. I started using them. I loved them. I figured out what they did, what they couldn't do, figured out ways around it, and then just started using them, and that's kind of really got me to where I am today. I work for a large organization. You may have heard of it, called Verizon. We're one of Slack's largest customers. We have roughly 200,000 users in our environment. We have over 100,000 workflows, which run over 1 million times a month. So basically our organization uses the heck out of workflows, and again, I love them. I could talk about them, all day long. Um, so the things I like about workflows is workflows can be used for almost any business process, anything repeatable that you want to use in Slack. And anytime you want to solve some sort of business problem in Slack, or something that you can repeat over and over again, that's a great candidate for workflows. Again, anything that you need to solve a business problem, or some sort of repeatable process for, and it provides very meaningful, standardized messages to users. So what I like to do is I like to find ways to innovate things, to innovate workflows, to make them do kind of what I want. I like to piece together all the different steps in the Slack features. To me, the magic with Slack workflows isn't just sending a message or opening up a form and getting something back from the user. To me, the real power and the magic behind workflows is when you can combine everything together, sending a message, opening up a form, adding stuff to a Google sheet, adding stuff to a list, reading from a list, Canvas. Again, combining all the elements of Slack and piecing them together in a magical way, again, to do something, meaningful for your users or for your business process. Um, and whenever I'm building a workflow, I like to think like a workflow. Workflows themselves are little, they're actually little applications, little Slack applications. And a workflow is actually a user. It's just a user posting a message, or a user doing something in Slack, whether it's updating a list or whatever. So whenever you're building a workflow, sometimes you have to think like a workflow. If you're getting an error or whatever, don't think of it as that you are getting the error. Think of it like the workflow is getting the error. So again, think like a workflow, and piece it all together. So with all that kind of intro said, I'm gonna go over roughly 5 or 6 workflows that I just kind of handpicked. We'll kind of go over them. We'll talk about them. This is a open session, so if you have any questions, feel free to let me know or type them in chat. I may not read the read the chat, so Push, I'll I'll
I
I'll
will help you
defer.
out
Yeah,
here.
I'll defer to you because I'll be sharing my screen shortly, and kind of going over some workflows and kind of what they do, and kind of showing some of the magic, um, that I've done. So, um, and again, I like to think of workflows is not doing the impossible or the art of doing the impossible, kind of change it around of doing the art of the possible. As Pusha said earlier, if you have something that you want to do in Slack with a workflow, I can probably find a way to do it. It may be unconventional, but I can usually find a way around it or a way to do it. All right. So I'll pause for any questions real quick while I share my screen. Which screen am I sharing here? Um, all right, get rid of that. Let's hide this. Uh, Okay, so you should be seeing my Slack screen right now. I believe that's correct. Um, and this is my production environment. So just ignore kind of some of the noise. We're going to go over some workflows, and I'm going to go over them in kind of order of, not simple to most advanced, but kind of somewhat in that area. Um, so the first workflow I want to show you is something that you can use with a Slack list. So I just kind of created a list this morning, and we'll call it a new team onboarding list. So lists are great, for tracking things, in rows, kind of like a spreadsheet. You can have different fields and even thread things on a list. And it could be anything. You can have a to-do list for yourself. This list that I created is for new hires, new team onboarding. But you can certainly use this method for maybe like a sales list, a sales tracking list, or IT help. And maybe you have a workflow where you're tracking IT support requests. This is just one that I just created, for demo purposes for, a new team onboarding. So, so we have a Slack list, and again, it's great for tracking things. And we're going to do a workflow, which, okay, I guess I don't have it pulled up. So we'll pull it up real quick. User onboarding. And let's pull it up here and let's open it in a new window so we can see it. Go to home. All right. So this workflow, as you can see right at the top, it's triggered or it starts. This is called the trigger. It's how the workflow starts, how it's triggered. This is triggered when something is updated, when a list item is updated in this list, and then I go directly into workflow branching, conditional branching. If you don't know, this is something that was just released by Slack a few weeks ago. It allows you to make decisions based on something that happens in a workflow. You can go down different branches when something happens. So I'm doing this, I'm branching based on when something happens in the workflow. So it's triggered when an item is updated. And when I look at this, um, it's triggered when the working state has changed in the list. So let's go back and look at this list. So I have this list with the working state, and this is the state of the person that I'm trying to hire, that we're trying to hire. And when we look at the state, it could be, maybe we're interviewing them or they're working on their HR paperwork, and then it goes to IT account setup and so on. So there's different processes or different states that this user can be in. And this workflow is going to start whenever this state changes. So let's say we're interviewing Jane Doe, and we'll say, yeah, she's great. Let's go ahead and hire her. All right. So somebody changes the state, and we're going to hire her, send her an offer letter, and let's set her up to do her HR paperwork. Her W-2 and get all of the emergency contacts and stuff like that. All right. So let me minimize this. Let's go back to my channel. All right. And as you can see, I now have a message in my channel. The state changed. So once the state changed, I got a message from our workflow that says, hey, a new employee is being onboarded. Go ahead and process the HR paperwork. And there's a button here to complete that process with the link to the list. So if I need to go look at the list, look at the person's information, I can certainly, click on this and go see the list itself, or it's even previewed or unfurled here if I want to see it. Once HR is done, they can complete their process, um, and that's it. And if we go back to the workflow, we will see that this is what was done. That the list item was in the HR setup field, and then they completed the process and then updated the list item once they hit this button. And now we see on the list, the status changed to the IT account and laptop setup because that's what this step did, is it updated it. So if I go back to my channel, I get another message. Now, for demo purposes, I'm just going to say that I sent all of these to the same channel. These could be certainly different channels. Maybe you have an HR channel that you want to send this message to. Maybe you have an IT channel that you want to send this to. When it goes to welcome, maybe you have the same HR channel to welcome them, and then introductions, some other channel. For test purposes, I just sent it to all my channels, or to this single channel for test purposes. So I sent this message. Um, it, IT says, hey, new employees onboarded. Go ahead and set up their IT account, new laptop. So IT's done that. Hit complete. It opens up a form. Select the username. Well, let's just say her name is Jane Doe in Slack. All right, submit. You'll see it change on the list. It changed to welcome kit. So HR needs to send them their welcome kit. Um, and I get a message, hey, it's set to welcome kit. So let's go ahead and introduce them once they come on board. And then the workflow will do its thing and send them an introduction message shortly. And there we go. There's our message. We've got a new employee. Welcome Jane Doe to the team. And this was all done based on changes in the list with a single workflow that's doing conditional branching. So the point I want to make here is you can kind of combine different elements of Slack workflows to complete a whole entire process. And I didn't need to code an application to do this. All I needed to do was just set up a workflow. I didn't write a single piece of code here. It's all done based on a workflow. And yes, I did this with with the list. I did it with the form, or I did things with the form, but I'm not limited to just list. If I wanted to write to a canvas, I can write to a canvas in the same workflow. I can combine all sorts of different elements, all within the Slack workflow, within the steps. All right. And again, if you have any questions or whatever, just throw it up in chat, and Pusha will let me know, or come off mute, and we'll go over that. All right. So that's an example of using a list. All right. So let's get a little more advanced. Um, oh, you will see in my workflows, a lot of my more advanced workflows, that I use the Google Sheets integration. Google Sheets is by far and in large my favorite Google Sheet, or my favorite workflow integration. I like Google Sheets, because of the fact that Google Sheets will allow you to make decisions and do all sorts of magical Google Sheet stuff. Since it is a spreadsheet, you can do, if statements, if this, then this. You can customize a message based on something. Again, using an if statement within Google Sheets. You could do mathematical formulas in Google Sheets. So again, my favorite feature, um, integration, is the Google Sheet integration. So here's a quick little workflow showing off Google Sheets integration. This is a Dreamforce countdown. So we all know Dreamforce is coming, and I've got a workflow that says when it's coming. And I just did this just based on a workflow shortcut, but you can certainly do this on a scheduled timer. We have this in another workspace that's doing it on a schedule, so it sends it out every Friday. Just for demo purposes, I'm going to run it manually. So if I run this manually, this is going to give us how many days until Dreamforce. And in a second, we'll see it pop up shortly. Come on, come on, come on.
I think people can also see the
Mhm.
timer in the Slack workspace if you
Yes,
are a part of the Dreamforce channel there.
yes, yes, and they built that based on what I did here. Um, so yes, so here's the workflow. It says Dreamforce is almost here. Countdown. We've got 39 days, which is 1 month and 9 days until the event. So how did I get this? Well, I did it with Google Sheets. So if we go and we look at Google Sheets, we'll see I did it right here. So Dreamforce is on 10/14/2025, and we'll see here that I've got a formula that that gets, it's the formula of date difference, which is the date difference between today and this date. Um, and I also calculate, I've also got, I calculate the date difference with the month and date difference with the day. So I use the calculation here to get the message that I send to the channel. Um, if I were to change this to, let's say, Christmas, how many days I want till Christmas, you'll see here we've got 111 days left until Christmas. Um, so again, with the Google Sheets integration, you can make decisions and do math calculations and send it back as a message into the channel. So that's just a quick little example of Google Sheets integration. All right, let me go back and change that. Okay, so let's get a little more advanced with the Google Sheet integration. So every year we have a we have multiple teams. And if you're part of FitBlazer, it's even coming up in FitBlazer, that like to do a step challenge. And what they do is they count daily steps of how many steps you've done. Nope, 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 nope. Let me go right here of how many steps that you've done for a program. So here I have a Google Sheet. I've got two teams, Team Luigi, Team Mario, if you know Super Mario Brothers. And I've got users here in a Google Sheet. Um, there's their name, and then program count is how many steps that they've done for the entire program. We're doing a step counter. And as you can see here, I've got the top three people here. I've got the top three people on this team here. And this is all done just with Google Sheets formulas. Um, as you can see, here in this, I'm doing a formula. I'm counting up how many steps that they've done. This is how many total the team has done. I've got an average per team. Um, so now, how do users, if I want users to use Slack to kind of um, tell me how many steps that they've done, we set up a workflow for that. So let's go. It's this one right here. So I'm going to start workflow. And the workflow says, okay, who are you submitting the steps for? Well, I'm going to submit it for myself, um, versus my boss or whatever. Sometimes bosses, want their secretaries to do it or their executive assistants to do it. So we set it up here to where you could put in steps for somebody else. So my steps were, let's say yesterday I did, 900 and, well, not 96,000 steps, but we'll say I did that number of steps, and that's all created in a workflow, or that's all done in a workflow. Once it's added, or once the workflow does its thing, it will add it to the sheet. And I should get a message up here in a second once it's done. Any second now. I guess Slack is running slow today. There it is right there. So I get a message. It says, hey, thanks for submitting. This was the one I did yesterday. Thanks for submitting. You've done 9,600 steps and your total is 9,651. So let's do another one. Um, let's say I forgot to put in my steps for Tuesday. Um, so we'll say Tuesday, and I didn't walk that much that day. I did 5,123 steps. And while it's doing it, let's go back to the sheet. What this workflow is doing is every time somebody runs the workflow adds their entry to the Google Sheet here. As you can see, this is the one that I did first, 9,651. This is the one I just did, 5,123 steps. And in my participant list tab, it's adding all of those up. And this row right here, you can see my total is 14,000 steps, which was the 9,000 plus the 5,000. So Google Sheets is tracking all this information. And why do we want to track all this information? Well, because this is a contest. People want to do something with the content. They want results. They're having fun. They want to do a contest. So let's go back to the workflow, or the workflow message. So as you can see here, this was the second one I did, 5,000 steps, and my total was 14,000 again. All right. So again, they want to do a contest, but how do we know, you know, how do we know who's winning the contest or what the stats are? Well, we have another workflow. So we're going to start this workflow, and this will give us the results of what team. Well, what team do you want the results for? Well, let's do it Team Luigi, because that's the team that I'm on. So once I hit submit, we will see shortly that I will get a message uh, from the workflow with the reports. And there it is. So here's the reports of everybody on my team and how many steps that they've done. You'll see here I am right here. I've done 14,000 steps. And the average steps per participant is 61,000. So again, this is reading all the information from Google Sheets and it's spitting it back out to the user. Again, my favorite integration, because we can do all this calculation and provide meaningful results to the users. You can also give a link to the user of of the sheet if they want. Something new that Slack has put out in the past couple of weeks is something that they call work objects. So if you have a link to something in a Google Drive, you can actually preview that in a message. So I have another sheet, which is here, which is the charts, and this is a work object that Slack has just recently introduced in the last few weeks. And if I preview that, you will see here shortly that here is here's a chart. So not only do I get the information from the sheet here, but I can have charts in Google Sheets, and users can see something more meaningful than just text. This is a chart from a Google Sheet, and you can preview that directly from Slack without having to go to the sheet itself. So this is a work object. It's something new. It's pulling from this this chart right here in this Google Sheet. So again, Slack is where work happens, and we want to kind of minimize the whole concept of app switching, so you can do everything and see everything within Slack and provide something more. Again, provide something kind of more meaningful for the user. So okay, I may be talking and going through things a lot of real fast. Pusha, do we have any questions or anything? No.
Um,
Nope.
we only got like one question. Can you please specify power of workflows? And I think that was like when you started the presentation. And I guess like by now, Pragya, you might have seen like the power of workflows. Um, and
Yeah.
now Faza obviously wanted to see the back-end integration of like how you're doing all this.
Sure.
With
Sure. So for this one, let's go back to automations. Um, uh, Managed by you. Oh, I can just click on it right here. So if I'm logging the steps, so again, when they log the steps, if you remember, it started from the link in Slack. All I did was collect info in the form. So this form was who are you submitting the steps for, and the date of your steps, and the number of steps. So that was it in the form. And then what I do here is I'm using the Google Sheet integration, and I'm adding the stuff to the sheet. There's a few more steps here because with Google Sheets you can actually provide error messages. So what I'm doing here is I'm saying if you submitted for something that's not if you submitted for a date in the future, I'm going to give you an error message. Or if you submitted for a date that's not in the program date, I can send you an error message. And then I add it to the sheet. I do a couple of updates, and then I select. When I'm doing the select, I'm actually selecting the step where I can get the total. So that's that one. And then when I'm doing the team reports, um, uh, all I'm doing there is kind of the same thing. I'm saying I'm opening up a form. Who do you want to view the reports for? Then I go get that information from Google Sheets. I select the information, and then I send it here in the channel, or in this instance, I send it to as a DM to the person who used the workflow. This here is a custom step. As you can see here, it's a custom step. We'll get to custom steps shortly, but for purposes here, this doesn't really matter. But that's the back end of these. Again, I'm using the Google Sheets steps to add and read from Google Sheets. So we can go with those in more depth, but I want to make sure that I get through some other stuff first. Okay. Um, okay, let's go with something else. Let's go with uh, some more powerful stuff. Um, Again, this workflow is using Google Sheets integration because I like to track things in a Google Sheet. Google Sheets allows me to do so much stuff. Um, so let me go to the very bottom of this. So we have a workflow. Let me find it here, this channel. So we have a workflow here where sometimes we need to deactivate users. Um, so we want to deactivate a user in, let's say, Slack and Google. This is more of an IT user administration thing. So let's say an IT administrator needs to deactivate a user or do something within Slack, something for this user. So we have a workflow that does this. Again, it's all within Slack. They don't have to go to the Slack admin console to do it, or they don't have to go to the Google admin console and do it. Or maybe we have a security person that we don't want to give them full administrative rights to Slack or full administrative rights to Google, but we want them to be able to do some administrative type things. So we set this up with a workflow. So I'll just kind of give you an example. So I'm going to run this workflow here. As you can see, it's a featured workflow in the bottom. So all I have to do is all I have to do is do it and click on here. And this says, okay, enter their enterprise ID. This is just a special number. And let's say I want to reset their Slack session. Um, what's their email address? Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at my domain.com. Um, and what I want to do for Google, let's just suspend them. And we'll say testing workflow. All right. So once I hit submit here, what that does is it'll send a message in the channel that, hey, a request has been submitted by the person who submitted it. As you can see, I get an ephemeral message that says, hey, thanks for your request. We're going to process it. And in 60 seconds, we'll give you the answer or what's happening. And then here's a message in the channel. So what's happening in the back end is, as you can see here, here is the request. Now, I'm sorry, not Google, Slack does not have native user administration for Slack and Google in this instance. So what I've done here is I've done something with Google Apps Script. Now, if you know what Google Apps Script is, Google Apps Script is kind of a programming language. It uses JavaScript on the back end. And when something happens in Google, you can have it run some code. So that's what I've done here is I've said, okay, when I see something added to this sheet, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do whatever you tell it to me, whatever you tell me to do. So in here, I wanted to reset the Slack session for this user and I wanted to suspend the user in Google. Well, my code says, okay, well, whenever something happens here, um, let's do it. And as you can see, I'm running code here. I'm using the Slack API. I'm going to what's called skim. It's not really important right now. Um, and I'm doing a session reset for the user. I'm doing all this within code based on something that happens here in the sheet. So I add something to the sheet. Google Apps Script says, oh, I've got something new. I need to process it. So let me run this code and process it. And I'll put the answer right here. And then what the workflow will do is the workflow will then, whoops, the workflow will then read it. Because you may want to see that the back end, I forget what it's called. Let me see what it's, nope, if I can type reset. So this one is, again, this is that form. I collected the information in the form. I updated this sheet, and then I read the information from the sheet. Um, I added it to the sheet. Um, I sent a message that says, hey, it's been submitted. Then here I have a delay of 1 minute. So to give it time for the app script to process, then I select the answers from the sheet, and then I send a message to the channel of what actually happened. So let's go back to the channel and take a look at what happened. So in threads, I'll click the thread here. And as you can see, this is the information I put in the form. Um, it looked for this for the user ID. It said Slack user ID not found because this was just a test. And told it to suspend the user in Google, and the Google user was not found because, again, this was just a test. But as you can see on previous request, um, this person, they wanted to deactivate the user in Slack and suspend the user in Google, and it was done successfully. So that's an example of something kind of advanced that you can do, kind of combining a Slack workflow with Google Sheets, and then doing some magic behind the scenes with Google Apps Script. It's a little more programming. It's a little kind of advanced kind of stuff, but it's an example of how you can call external APIs that may not be integrated into Slack yet, but you can call an external API to do something, get a result, and then provide it back to a user. And that external API doesn't have to be necessarily something with Slack. Maybe you have some sort of internal application that you want to do. You may want to write something to an internal application or process something on some internal database. You can certainly do that with the Google Sheets integration and then provide a result back to the user, all with Google Apps Script, putting it in the sheet, having the Slack workflow read the information back, and then sending it back to the user all within the Slack workflow. So that's more power of Google Sheets. So okay, and then the last workflow I want to show you, let me kind of bring it up here, is this is a big workflow, and if I scroll through it, you'll see it's got 37 steps. Um, don't worry about this red because I'm currently making changes, and so it doesn't. It Yeah, don't worry about the red for now. So this is a Slack workflow where a user wants to request access to a particular application. So they request access using a form, and then I have lots of different approvals. I send a message to the user. The user has to agree that they do something, and then it goes for approval. So let's go back and let's kind of show you where it's at. Um, I forgot where it was at. So, all right. So here's the workflow. This is a request for an application called Notebook LM. So a user wants to um, request access to this application. So this is just a typical Slack workflow form with the checkbox. Yes, I'm going to abide by the guidelines. I'm going to say testing workflow, submit. All right. So then I'm going to get a message that I submitted. I'm going to get a message. I'm going to get two different things. Shortly, I'll get a message um, that I submitted. Um, Sometimes the Google Sheet apps take a few seconds. So there's my message right there. Um, if I go look at it, here's a message from the workflow. Here's my request number, because I'm using Google Sheets to track everything, and Google Sheets has an auto incrementing ID number. So I'm getting a request number from Google Sheets because, again, Google Sheets could do math functions. So all I'm doing is incrementing by one. Um, um, and it sends a message to a thread. Do I acknowledge and agree? Yes, I acknowledge and agree. And then after I acknowledge and agree, it goes to another team for approval, which we'll see here. This is a live workflow, by the way. Um, we'll see here that in a second that I requested access. And waiting for that, I'll also show you that part of this workflow also, let me hit refresh, sends me an email. So I have an email here from the workflow. So this is Gmail, and I've got a nice, pretty email that was sent to me from the workflow. This is no coding involved. From the workflow, I can click here to go to this Google document. I can click here to go right to that request in Slack, or here's an internal knowledge base article. But of course, if I click here, it will go right to that request in Slack. And again, it went, as you can see, it went right to the request right there in Slack. Let's go back here. And as you can see here, here's my request. And it's gone to the Google administrators for approval. I'm a Google admin, so I'm in this channel. And as a Google admin, I can hit approve or deny. I'm gonna just say approved. Well, I'm gonna deny it real quick. Um, just say testing. This user did a request, so I'm going to approve. Oh, nope, Damien approved it. But after that, after it goes to approval, this request, where is that workflow? Did I close it? No, here it is. So as you can see, after the Google administrators approve it, it goes to their manager. So I'm sending a message to the manager um, with an approval button for approval or deny. The manager also gets an email that they have a request pending. And then once they approve it, it writes it into the Google Sheet. And then there's some other stuff in the back end where I use Google Apps Script to provision their account. But this workflow is all, it's an approval process built all within Slack, being tracked by Google Sheets, providing the user with relevant information. Um, where is it? With relevant information about their status. As you can see here, I've got a thread going here that it was denied because I denied it. I've got a request number here. As you can see, previously when I was testing, there was a request number. So I've got auto incrementing request numbers that I can give to the user so that they can go back and say, hey, what's the status of my request, as well as Gmail. And again, this is all done. If I can go back to my window, this is all done within the workflow. And again, that pretty email, um, excuse me, that pretty email is done with an HTML email. So it's not just plain text. I'm using HTML formatting in my email. And if you're familiar with email code or HTML coding, this is just HTML coding, sending an email. Um, and I sending it to the user. And again, this is all based in all in a Slack workflow using various steps within a workflow, various steps within Slack, kind of combining them all together to have a whole entire process, between tracking in Google Sheets, between sending the user an email, using an approval process, sending the messages in Slack. So you can do a lot of great things with Slack workflows by combining different elements within Slack. So I know we've gone through a lot of stuff, and I want to make sure that we have time for questions. So, what questions do you have, if any?
So far, no questions, but I will say like this workflow is really, really neat. And I feel like I'm not sure about others, but I'm learning like all the interesting things we can do with
Hmm.
workflows. Not that I can code with Google, but
Yeah,
still like it's really, really interesting to see like what all the things we can do there.
yeah.
Um, so that was really amazing. If you have any questions around workflows, please drop them in the comments. In the meantime, I am going to post my very first question on the Slack certified channel. So just get ready for that. Give me a thumbs up in the comment section if you are ready. And then I'll post the question in the Slack certified channel. And you know the drill, like you need to respond with the correct emoji in the channel, and the fastest person to do that actually wins. So just get ready. And this is a really easy one. So the game is all about being the fastest one. I can see some people are ready and they've given thumbs up, and I'm going to take that as a guess for everyone. And here we go. So this was a trick question, and the answer was none of the options were right. And I fooled literally everyone. You want to
Yes,
say
that
something?
yeah, that is correct. 'Cause I was looking at those trying to think, did I miss a word? But yes, uh, you can do all of those.
Yes.
You can send a message when a user joins the channel, which is great for like welcome channels. Um, Something new that they released within the last 2 weeks is a message containing a specific keyword, and I saw your post about that. It was a great write up. I'm going to steal some of that, by the way. Um, and the schedule date and time emoji reaction is great. And one thing I can say with emoji reaction is sometimes, well, a lot of well, you can actually have workflows triggered off of different things. So you can actually have a workflow put an emoji, put a reaction on a message, which then triggers another workflow. So you can kind of combine workflows and make workflows trigger each other by combining things, by combining steps.
Mhm. Well, I really like triggering workflows with emojis.
Mhm.
And sorry if that joke was too much of posting like the trick question. Here's the correct one. And when I'm posting the correct questions, I'll actually write part one, part two, like I normally do. So here we go. And the first one to respond with the correct answer is Adri Bakos.
Yes.
So congratulations. Let me just
Yes,
post that in.
Google Sheets is my favorite. I like to use it because it just because of the power because of the power and the information that it provides. Yes, I do love the ability that you can combine multiple steps and apps. I do love that feature of Slack workflows. But my favorite feature is the Google Sheets connector because it allows me to do all sorts of things. And we didn't talk about custom steps, but I've built a lot of custom steps. Maybe if we have time, we can talk about that. But yeah, I do love custom steps. Mhm.
Perfect. So now we will actually take Linda's question before we move on to the other questions in the certified channel. Linda wants to know, my question is on both Slack and Agentforce. I built an Agentforce to recommend Slack workflow templates based on user needs. If there is there a way Agentforce can call the workflow pre-built template it recommend to fire if I react with a specific emoji? A workflow to start a workflow inception style.
All right, let me. I'm reading that and digesting it. But I built an Agentforce to recommend Slack workflow templates based on user needs. Is there a way Agentforce can call the workflow pre-built template recommended to fire if I react with specific emoji? So a template is just a template. Are you saying you want Agentforce to start a workflow? Uh, Okay, yes. If yes, you can start a. I think what this really boils down to is can you start a workflow with a specific emoji? If the agent force, if it's a Slack workflow, yes, you can start a workflow with a specific emoji. is it, I think I'm getting that correct. I think I'm getting your question correct. But I know for a fact you can start an emoji. You can start a workflow based on an emoji. And again, like I said earlier, you can have a workflow put an emoji on a message, which will then fire another workflow. So if you have an agent force workflow that's putting a reaction on a message, you can then have that workflow start based on that workflow putting an emoji on that workflow or on that message.
Mhm. Well, if you have any more questions, you can drop them in the comments. In the meantime, I'm going to post another question in the Slack certified channel. In three, two, one, here we go. Again, the fastest person to answer this wins.
I have a comment about this one. Once you give the answer, I do have a comment about this.
Yeah, but probably like let's just wait for the correct answer. Okay, so Balaji Angadi, you are the winner for this one. Congratulations on being the fastest to provide the correct answer. And now you can share your comment.
Yeah, so going let's go up from let's take number one. Workflows don't need special permissions for access to channels or files. That is false because yeah, workflows are essentially little apps and they are a user. Workflows actually have a user ID, and they do need to be able to access a channel or be able to have access to a list or a canvas if they want to write to a list or canvas or to a channel. Um, I'm going to skip number two because that's what I want to comment on. Three is incorrect because you can update what you can have 100 steps per workflow. So yes, you can update a canvas, you can update a list, uh, all multiple sorts of things, whatever you can do in a workflow. For conditional branching, yes, yes, conditional branching is true. You can have up to 10 different paths. That is true. I want to go back and talk about loops and repeating. Um, No, you can't yet, but I know that the Slack is working on it. And uh, sometimes I lay in bed at night and I think about workflows, and that's where I get some of my inspiration from. And actually, just last night and this morning, I was thinking about workflows because that's what I do. Um, and I think I know of a way to do it today.
Mhm.
So I'm going to be testing that today to try and loop and repeat steps over and over again. So stay tuned for that because I may be announcing a way to do that. And if it works, I will put a write up into the workflow builder channel and the community workspace. And I'm thinking it's going to work. So stay tuned for that. I just need to test it later on today. So we may be able to loop and repeat steps over. So it's going to be kind of funky how we do it, but again, that's how I do workflow. That's how I think about workflows. I try and figure out a way to do it, um, and then test it, and then do it. So it may be a little funky,